Okay, it is 8:30. I'll call this meeting of the Riley County Commission to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully everybody is staying dry this Thursday morning. And we're going to go ahead and open up next part of the meeting for public comment. We'll say on public comment that we'll have to come up to the podium, state your name, and at least our rules during this pandemic is just kind of allowing about 3 minutes worth of public comment time. So go ahead.
Great, thanks. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Appreciate you allowing us some time here this morning. I'm Dennis Cook. I am the director of the Aggieville Business Association, and I'm joined this morning with Jeremy Platt.
Yes, good morning. I'm Jeremy.
Morning.
Our point of being here this morning is basically it's a concern and a request. Our concern is the new Riley County Health Order number 16 is we feel it's an overreach. And it's restrictive enough to fail businesses and undermine our local economy. I understand there's been a lot of pressure through the health department from the university to implement these restrictions, but this restraint of business isn't fair. It's punitive to hardworking, caring, and locals that are trying to make a living and raise families in this town. I did hear this morning that Julie Gibbs even referred to it as preventative. So it's not data driven. So even though it is a county health order, so that should be considered the county-wide, we feel it is directly aimed at Aggieville and way more punishing for them than anybody else. So that's my concern. My request would be that you consider holding a hearing with that you have a hearing with the Riley County Health Board to review and consider rescinding Health Order number 16.
And from my standpoint, I pulled some numbers yesterday from the Kansas County's website dealing with the COVID-19 outbreak. I've been in contact with the Aggieville Business Association as well. We believe that this order number 16 from the health department is overly restrictive. We believe that it's going to create, the application of the order is going to create numerous legal issues for the county. And we don't believe that it's based upon data that's provided by the Kansas County's website. We think it is something that is more of a outlook towards the future, things that could possibly happen. And that's our reason for the request for the hearing by the Riley County Health Board to consider rescinding that order.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other comments from the chamber this morning? Okay. Seeing none, I'll move up to Zoom here. I see Julie and David are on. Julie, you have an update? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, I just have an update on numbers and a few other things. So these are numbers from yesterday. We haven't seen any new ones as of this morning. So yesterday we were at 441 confirmed positives. Out of those, 101 are considered active cases. We have had 4 deaths and 336 are recovered. We currently have 3 COVID positive patients in the hospital at this time, none of which are on vents. We have 182 tests pending. We've had a total of 4,239 negative tests in the county so far. I will say, as far as numbers coming from bars and restaurants, we have seen a total of 66 restaurant and bar employees as cases. 44 of those do work in Aggieville. 49 others were positives and mentioned going to at least one location in Aggieville. So those are some numbers to justify some of our data that we've seen at the EOC. Our contact tracers have seen at the EOC. That is a large chunk of those 441 confirmed positives. And I will say we are using the data available to us, in order to help stop the spread, doing what we can to help stop the spread. And if some of this is, like I mentioned before, some of this is preventative, but we have seen these numbers coming from restaurants and bars. And so we're doing what we can and not going as drastic as some of the other counties that we've seen, Shawnee County, Douglas County, have done a little bit more restrictive, been a little bit more restrictive with their orders. So we're just trying to balance this in a controlled way. Also, the screening line is still available on weekdays, 8 to 5. That number is 323-6400. We have seen a decrease in the amount of individuals that are calling that screening line. So we had as many as 70 callers in a day back in June. Now we're seeing about 25 to 35 calls a day. We still are seeing a few come through our swabbing station. We had about 22 last week. So far, we've had about 10 this week. So those volumes are down too. That's good to hear. We did have a clinical task force meeting yesterday with our providers, and I think they're starting to slow down a little bit there, but it's kind of the calm before the storm. We know students are going to come back as early as this weekend with August 1 leases. So we're getting ready for that, preparing for that. We are looking at more testing capability. That was one big topic of our conversation last night with the providers. So looking at possibly purchasing some more rapid test kits and machines to be able to do that, just getting ready for the fall. As we know, we'll see a lot more with our students coming back in the fall. We'll need a lot more testing capabilities. We're also in contact with USD 3-3. We actually had a meeting yesterday with their nurses to look at protocols going forward for the students and teachers as far as getting tested and what that will look like as far as contact tracing for that as well. We have another meeting with the nurses tomorrow. As you know, order number 16 was issued on Tuesday. It goes into effect this morning. And one of the big differences is it does not have an end date, but we can amend or rescind that at any time. So it's not going to be in place forever, but we can look as the data tells us, we can make amendments to that. Another big difference is mass gatherings over 50. Those events we know are already going on. So in order to kind of control that and make sure that those events are happening safely, we do have a request form on our website. So individuals can fill out that request form. It goes straight into my email, as well as Ed Callis. We were putting together a subcommittee to look at this. Individuals from the Recovery Task Force, Clinical Task Force. We do have an individual from the Health Department on that, so that they can be able to review those requests that are coming in and determine if those events should happen or if there needs to be further safeguards that are put in place. So far from the ones that I've seen, they're very detailed, and many of them are able to happen without any other safeguards in place. They're requiring masks. Most of them are outside, no dance floors. So very, very controlled, and I have no doubt they'll be safe. And this way we also know what events are going on. This will run up through the command staff as well. So the RCPD, fire station, they know about these events going on as well. We have had a few that have come in that we've had to reach out to and let them know, hey, maybe you need to put a few more safeguards in place, or maybe this needs to happen, this needs to change. So we'll work with them so that their event can happen. And then another difference in that order, as you know, it's limited to bars and restaurants are limited to seated only. So no dance floors congregating at the bar. That was another big difference between our last order and this order. We're still seeing a lot of questions come through our Facebook account and our Gmail account, but we're encouraging people to still use that Gmail account. That really helps us to keep track of who has questions and what kind of questions we're seeing. So that email again is rileycountycovid19@gmail.com. Any questions?
Yeah, I've got a couple, Julie. You mentioned the rapid testing there. Just for everybody that's listening, can you kind of explain a little bit better how those actually work, please? And then the second
I don't know
question.
that I'm the best one to explain to you.
Okay.
I'd rather a provider or even Andrew explains, but yeah, we're looking at hopefully just a faster turnaround altogether. That's my goal. Now we're seeing about 5 to 7 days still when they come through the swabbing station. I mentioned on the radio yesterday, it really depends on where you go to get tested because we're trying to use different labs, but those labs get backed up quickly. And with a lot of students coming back and with opening up our K through 12, we will see a lot more people getting tested. And even the quick labs, the quick turnaround labs that are seeing a 1 or 2 day turnaround, they will get backed up. So we're trying to get those rapid testing so we can get results within 45 minutes is what we're trying to do. So
Okay. That kind of explains half of it.
okay.
The second question I have would be, has there been any indication, discussions of what may be coming down through Topeka shortly? I know the governor had a press conference on Monday, made mentions of some things. Any hint of what that maybe, might be, could be, would be?
I really don't. There's been a little bit of chatter on the listserv, on my local health officer listserv, but we really don't have a good indication of what's coming down.
Okay. That sums it up for me. Did you have any questions, Ron? Okay. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
Julie.
David, did you have anything to add?
No, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Leon, I see that you're up there. Did you have any comments you needed to make?
No.
Okay. And with that said, we'll move on to commissioner comments, and we'll start off with Commissioner Wells.
Well, it's been a very wet week. I'm frustrated at not being able to get my mowing caught up with, or I may just have to put the water wings on and go ahead and hit it anyway. No, I've been following the emails on the COVID-19 next order coming out 16, 17, and dealing with that, and the mask ordinance strongly recommended in the county, and in my remodel. That's pretty much the extent of the week.
Okay. Well, for me, kind of rolling back to Monday, of course, we had the monthly intergovernmental meeting hosted by K-State this year. It's good to catch up with all the local government and public agencies that kind of on that meeting. I thought the presentation was given from Eric Reed from USD 383 was very good and very concise. Much like everything else, some of those plans, some of those things and challenges are very fluid. So to kind of get an update of where they're at and why they're at where they're at was, I thought, rather good. I think overall they've done a really good job getting ready for this. I mean, they have to kind of maybe push it back out or something, but they're working very, very hard on that, and I appreciate all their efforts. Wednesday, I listened into another presentation by the Council of Foreign Affairs. This one dealt with elections and voting during COVID-19. It featured Trey Grayson, who was a former Secretary of State from the state of Kentucky, Tanisha Way, who's the current Secretary of State in New Jersey, and Elizabeth Howard, who's the senior counsel for democracy programs at the Brennan Center. I was going to Google that to see what that was exactly, but I never got around to doing that. They really gave pretty good insight on all these presentations on how things can work, given all the variables, mail-in ballots, polling, that sort of thing. Really at the end of that presentation, what I came to the conclusion of, and what I'm feeling really confident is that we've got all those protocols and things in place very well here for Riley County, both for Tuesday and of course for moving even forward into November. So feeling pretty good about that after I listened to that presentation. Wednesday, we had the monthly board meeting via Zoom for Pawnee Mental Health. It was a short meeting this particular time out. The reason being is they did have their annual awards and celebration. Of course, it's usually done in person. That's not the case this year, obviously. They did a Facebook Live, put a pretty short, streamlined presentation together for that. Had some really, really good testimonials. I don't know if that presentation that's up online somewhere where it could be viewed, but if anybody really wants to see the real impact that they make and they have, I would encourage you to watch that. And I wanted to congratulate everybody that won awards for their hard work in working with Pawnee and other various agencies around the 10-county region here over the last year as well. So, and that's basically all I have. So it looks like we need to move forward to some business, correct?
First item is tax roll corrections.
Move to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I'll catch up with you at noon.
Put Norman down as who's not here. Mr. Chairman.
Well, I read a one-liner yesterday. Health is the slowest pace to death.
True. It is. It is. Yeah, no one escapes it.
Well, no, I'm gonna hang on a little bit.
And we still don't know what happens after the fact. You know, there's still may be health involved in that too. We're waiting to do all these at once.
Wouldn't that be depressing, John? Afterwards, you still gotta be working out, huh? That depressing thought.
The thought has already crossed my mind, unfortunately. Yes. Yes.
Trainer's gonna meet you there on the other side.
Yeah. Hopefully it's just as nice as the one I've got. That's all I ask.
Next item, gentlemen, is Riley County Personnel Action Forms, Eric Ziegenhart, status change, temporary assignment on medical leave, gravel road supervisor, public works. Ruth Ott, new hire is COVID-19 tracer, health department. Courtney Balls, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce that last name, gentlemen. New hire, COVID-19 contract tracer, health department. Cole Nimley, new hire, COVID-19 tracer, and also Amanda Colson, new hire, COVID tracer.
How many does that put us up to then for that? Do you know, Cindy?
How many does that put us at, Julie? Do you know?
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Full.
So all 21, is that right?
We had 12 positions, but some of those, and Julie could probably chime in on this, some of those could not work a full schedule.
Okay.
So I think some of those are filling in
Right.
half days
Or as needed or,
maybe.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, there's 21 total, and I believe 9 that are working half-time.
Okay, okay.
Thank you, Julie.
Was seeing yesterday, KDHE is trying to get another 20 or something at the state. They're trying to build up to, I think, 100 is what I read. That leads me to believe that our 21, the state's hiring 100 and we're hiring 21, we're
Yeah.
going to be hopefully pretty good with that. Do I need to sign on the chairman's spot since that's me today?
That's fine.
Okay.
You're acting chair today.
Whoops, I missed one. That's all right. Signed on my usual spot on one of those there.
No, no problem. It all works.
All right.
Next, gentlemen, I need a motion to approve accounts payable and payroll.
Move to approve.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Both of you, please. Multiple documents there to sign. It's on the back side of that one, Ron, with your fingers on.
Whole bunch of county commissioners.
Huh?
Well, they've got space for about 4 or 5 of them. Yeah, I'll just take number 3.
Well, it's a standard program. Some counties having 5 commissioners.
For Johnson County, who has 7. Same thing, sign on chair, or does it?
Either one's
Okay.
fine, Don. Either one's fine.
I don't want to make any mistakes on this one for obvious reasons.
Yeah, people, just sensitive about the pay.
Yeah, I don't blame him. Don't blame him.
Get it that way to keep the economy going.
Yeah, something. It's just 3.
Should be 3.
Yeah,
3 times.
that's what I thought. Saw 2 paper clips there, but it was just the same one turned around.
Thank you.
Okay, looks
See
like.
if I can find them all. Ready for the minutes when the board is?
Okay. Everybody ready to go? Okay, seeing so, we'll start off on page 1. Page 2. Page 3. Page 4. Page 5. Page 6. Page 7. Page 8. Page 9. Page 10. Page 11. And page 12.
Move to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
How the tentative agendas look, gentlemen?
That's good.
We're already in August, huh?
Yeah, hard to believe, isn't it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Any items for next week's press conference, gentlemen?
Yeah,
No.
can't do anything.
Okay, next we have Clancy at 9. No, it looks like maybe Tuesday the city's gonna decide on sales tax, huh?
Yeah. Sounds like there's still some dissension there as to how to go about that, and not everybody's on 100% on board.
I think they got a lot of things to think about, and I'm not sure they're thinking about them all.
Yeah.
You go back 3 times and you get 3 no's.
I've heard some pretty stern comments on that from a handful of people, but granted, that is one working side of the aisle there, I guess, but not so much the tax itself, it's maybe what they should be doing instead. I don't know.
You know, amazes me, Ron, you see all these, I was always taught, you know, from a young boy, mowing lawn, never mow when the grass was wet. You know, when you see all these contractors out there, it's raining and they're mowing and weeding.
Yeah, and I think they got, they're probably designed, they're probably gonna maintain the mower, clean the decks, and, yeah, I've always heard that too, but, and of course, like, the mowing contractors, they have a very rigid schedule,
Right.
usually maxed out what they can do, so they don't have any choice.
Yeah, speaking of which, I saw, was it Blueville or Rothwell? One of the two that does our mowing out there was out there yesterday afternoon, 2:30 or a little after 3 when I left work yesterday.
On
So-
ours?
No, Florence, out of
Oh,
Florence.
gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha. Yeah, same thing, the county staff was doing ours yesterday too, and I was just taught different. I always just look at it kind of oddly, since I was always taught different, you know, as a kid. And that's kind of still what I was practicing at our house, you know.
I guess today when you have mulching mowers and you have stuff that chops things up a little bit more finely and, you know,
Well, the
different
grass
bagging
is
systems
one
and stuff.
thing, the other thing is they're using those big 0 turns or even those ones they ride on, is every time you turn, the
Right.
soil's
Mhm.
loose. And
Yeah.
you're damaging the turf, you know, is the other thing.
You know, the tractor style don't do as much damage, but the problem is, if it's really wet, is it can pack up, slug the deck in the chute, you know, and so far they're lucky on this one, it's a lot better than on the John Deere, it seems like it's designed better and it'll
Yeah.
still.
Man, this new one of ours, of course, it should be for the money I spent, but man, it mows nice. It does mow nice. It is cut at least an hour, if not more, off wife's mowing time,
Yeah.
and looks better.
Yeah.
My mowing time's still the same.
Yeah.
I'll make Ron jealous.
I told you, man, goats. Some goats. You can do the same thing, Rich, and just watch. Let hilarity ensue. Okay, Clancy.
Morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I don't know why that last minute leading up to finding your radio on takes 10 minutes. I have no idea. Continuing to work on issues involving, as raised for consideration by the Health Department, including helping them with drafting of any local orders necessary. That's always interesting and can be kind of time consuming. Also working as a participant through budget and planning, participating in Zoom calls, working with our consultant on the applications or assessment documents that come in that you'll be seeing at some point to make decisions on regarding those CARES Act funds and distributions. And also working on the radio project. A number of documents still need to be completed. You'll be seeing a flurry of those now that the system is up and running, at least on a test basis. And for some, I think Pat called it a burn-in period. I believe that's underway. Don't quote me on that, because I may be using the wrong term of art, but I know that that's where we're headed on that, and that's a good thing. But you'll see a number of formal documents necessary for your acceptance of the system, and that kind of thing. And he's got quite a few that you'll see over the course of the next probably 3 weeks. But also working on a project to include potentially, this will be ongoing through the life of the system, from time to time, adding potential users to some of the towers to help generate some funds that will help defray the overall cost of the system. We're going to not make much of a dent in it potentially in the short term, but over time, probably worth doing. And so you'll, from time to time, see those documents as those discussions are formalized. That's about it. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
I've been-
All right. Thank you very much.
yeah, thank you, Clancy.
Next gentleman, we have Monty at 9:20 on the public hearing.
Got a call from Jim, which is making up the fire district of Nashville. He was just kind of curious to see what progress is being made there. Fire station. Something happened, I said.
Hey, what's going on?
Let me shoot an email out to him too.
Yeah, sure. Just you want to be talking to me.
Yeah, I'm gonna-
That's what you know.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. That worked.
I don't think, it doesn't look like it. He just what he wanted, but he really
Bless you, sir.
Really, what's the song?
Well, I was talking with Greg McHenry on the phone yesterday, and I had him on the phone, and I put him on speakerphone, so I was having a sneezing fit, and I was in the office by myself, and I said, apologize, I said, I get that you're on, sometimes, I mean, at home, I swear I sneeze like 20 times in a row, so it just gets me just right. And I was having one of those at work yesterday, and he goes, yeah, I get those too. He says, I feel guilty nowadays when I do that. Because everyone's looking at you, you know? Mine's just a simple allergy thing.
Sure.
Funny thing is, I've seen people do that. You know, I've seen.
It's just a reflex. And I don't mind if what they're doing is good. We're kind of hard, but if they're just.
Yeah, I don't know. Just some things are, you know, so ingrained, and that's why a couple times I've caught myself because I'm a handshaker, and I'm shaking people's hand better. This is actually one guy, real estate, named Wayne, he's probably. But anyway, he saw me in the lobby the other day, and he stuck his hand out and shook my hand. He wanted to, it's kind of like Ron says, you know, some of those old guys that insults them don't. And he said, "You're okay, I'm okay, Wayne," you know, shook his hand. But I've done it inadvertently to some people, and they do the same thing. And oh, we're not supposed to do that.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I've got myself twice doing that since all this. Yes. It is.
That's terrible. That's terrible. Terrible.
Yes, yeah, I know that. Yeah, you don't have the power to do it.
Very disappointed.
Yeah, no doubt.
No, I'm gonna, already scheduled a couple of things for that.
But there again, I don't really care for them. I mean, I'm here for people.
Had a voter come in upstairs yesterday. It's funny, Chuck Tannehill, one of our election workers up there, he's retired Manhattan Fire Department.
Probably wearing another name.
I've known him a long time and go up there and I give him a hard time because he's on his phone a lot looking and all the other workers, you know, give him a hard time too. He's on his phone, you know, like a kid. So we give him a hard time about that. But I went up there yesterday just say hi and he goes, you know, he says, it's been really good, you know. We haven't had anyone come in with any attitude. He said, I really thought we'd have people coming in grumpy and upset about different various things that are going on, you know. And he said, we really haven't had that. I said, Chuck, you jinxed this.
Yeah.
I said, you just jinxed yourself, Chuck. Sure enough, I leave for lunch yesterday. Who comes in? A guy in a MAGA hat, Make America Great Again hat, with an attitude. I'm on lunch and Susan calls me. They tell him, you know, you can't vote. They should take the hat off. And he's calling him comrade. So I had to take him downstairs. Susan had to tell him. He said, I've read free speech, yeah, but there's also election laws that say it's against the law to do that, so you can't. So, you know, please take off your hat. You can vote. He's calling her comrade. And I went up to Chuck this morning. He started this morning. I said, okay, Chuck, stand up, raise your right hand. He did. I said, I, Chuck Tannehill, solemnly swear that I will never say we have not had any grumpy voters.
Just like saying, we're gonna have great weather.
So help me God. They're all laughing.
I like it. You probably thought you said
Chuck just takes this. And sure enough, it happened that same morning. He's a good friend of mine.
Is he? I was gonna say, the person I know.
Yeah, it was disheartening for me that him and Sandy weren't doing it. Sandy's got some pretty serious health issues, and I understand. And I know Mike really misses it because he meets with some of those guys for coffee still. And
Yeah, probably.
as I'm sure Sandy does too, they all enjoy it. That's So I want to thank the afternoon for helping out. So we love doing this, you know, appreciate the opportunity. They're all my best.
It is indeed. If that's long end of the night.
Yeah, I got one up there, Sally. She just went through cancer treatments last year. Lost her husband this year. She's up there working. She talked to her doctor. She said, I have my doctor. So she was. So I kind of want to say, I was losing her husband. I remember he passed away because he helped us all the time. He was this big guy, super nice. He was didn't appear that unhealthy, you know. Actually, Chad Bunger's father. It is, yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, Sally's up there, you know, and her hair still hasn't completely grown back, you know. Oh, yeah. She was so dedicated. They really questioned us a lot before they signed up and stuff about what we were doing in mass. I've talked to sanitization and all that. On the face shield, the face shield thing, because there's some of them that wanted that, and we said, here, office that contacted Julie or something. And don't repeat that. I think it was Lisa, maybe not. They're wearing face shields, but some of them wanted to wear the face shield instead, and we bought some so they could. And then after we got that complaint, we said, wear these until we get a determination from complaints, you know, if the face shield does comply with the order.
That's easy. I'll get you into my close business front.
Because I know one of our vendors, he's out of Arizona, Gus, I'm trying to think of his first name, Sean and his son, Larry Gustafson. I was talking to him one day on the phone. They're the vendor for our county payroll system, the tax system, and he said he has COPD, so a mask makes it really hard for him. And so he was telling me earlier, he said, I got a face shield. When I go out, he said, I wear a face shield because it's easier to breathe having COPD.
Why did you do it?
I don't know. So we bought a bunch of them because I had requested other poll workers that are working on election day saying, I'd rather have a face shield. So I said, okay, we'll get some.
If it's not abundant, then what I'll do is touch bases, take a turn and see what the interpretation.
Yeah, because
No reason why they can't.
I really need to know for sure before Tuesday.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No, that's all it is, if you're talking about the election. You got the question, you have the answer.
It's funny, I thought of that as I was driving in this. I was gonna ask you this because I could have forgotten, you may have replied.
Oh, in that case, I did.
Had Clancy replied on that yet? Because I know Harold, one of the guys, he's the one that asked me for training, can I wear a face shield? I think so.
Well, just based on what you just said, I did answer. You must have lost it.
I don't doubt I forgot it, the way my days have been, they've been observed.
And it's probably just operated around your part. You can't find it. Just because there's no IT evidence that it's there.
Well, I always tell everyone, my filing system is great, but retrievals now.
I have kind of different. Everything I file is under him, but miscellaneous. So it's funny when you go back to old files, prior staff and stuff. I know, thinking of bigger files. Once in a great while, you'll find something filed under T because it begins with the. Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often, but.
That's why Cindy's going through old files and I write down on her desk and stuff, she'll bring up stuff from like in the 90s. She goes, you remember this, you know? And thanks to her, that worked out and stuff. It's getting harder and harder to work the closer it gets. Yep, first elected in 96.
But it's maybe it's when you see something or something pointed out. 1980 is the same distance from today as 1980 was from 1940. The
That's something, that makes you think, doesn't it? What year you were born?
Because 1980, well, that happened way back in 1940.
About 40?
Older than Barry.
It's funny you mentioned 1980. I've got something here from 1980.
Who's that mysterious character?
I know, right?
Uh-oh, I gotta see
I
that.
don't know, he looks kind of shifty.
I gotta see that.
I looked at that and thought, man, what the hell happened?
Cute young
I
man.
know.
Looks like he belongs on a TV sitcom.
It does.
All downhill from there. It was, all downhill from there, you got it.
A cute young guy.
That kid could have been a friend of Opie Taylor.
Uh-huh.
In my defense, I'd like to say I've developed at least a little bit more of a personality. Or I'm gonna keep telling myself that anyway.
He did look a little mischievous.
I
How
was.
cute boys do.
Believe me, I was.
Oh, nice. Uh-huh. I like that kind of wood.
Wow. I got the big drawers in, so I was working on put them on, another wall.
Nice.
Oh,
Oh,
kind of wood?
What kind of wood?
Distressed hickory.
he's making his kitchen cabinets from scratch. This is unbelievable. It's a working house, no matter what. There's not many that can do it.
Yeah, but it's expensive. Shoulders gone, hands gone.
Yeah, geez, what a craftsman, there just don't have that anymore. You just don't.
I just like to pick a bunch of clothes, but there's some in the clothes.
Yeah, that is really neat.
Yes, yeah. Put the socks on it. Thing. Cause somebody for something told me else off the floor. Embarrassing. I had to do this for over a year. I had to put a rope of police system. Yeah, that's, my right torn rotator cuff started acting up real heavy the last couple of days, just killing me.
Uh-huh.
And, but I'm not in any pain right now, but I haven't, I'll take it real easy today and give it a chance to kind of heal a little bit. Mary says, hey, you gotta get in. I said, no, I've gotta get this work done first.
You're just lucky to even have a right rotator cuff to use.
Yeah.
What your arm's been through.
Yeah, the first one, the left one is torn in 98, and then again in 2000 there, this is the torn twice. And now I weigh it swollen, not repairable, the hell with it, you know.
Yeah, that's a bad thing. You let them go too long, like this one was, he said, this last one I had done, he said, if you'd have left that one, because it was major, he said, then you'd have been to degeneration, and then you'd have been to shoulder replacement.
Yeah.
He said, was what would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
First, I could do it in 60 with my granddaughter, you know. You do that with my granddaughter. Yeah. The first name doesn't really, you know, into the granddaughter part.
Okay, Monty, you're on.
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Well, we've had a, let's see, how do I get to this again?
Just minimize.
Minimize there.
And over there.
Here.
Yep. Have to scroll down to it. It's not down too far.
Okay, so I was going to say we've had a development
Keep
in
going down.
this case. The emergency responders who would really like to be here for this hearing to participate in the discussion have a conflicting meeting. And they've asked me to request from you that it be tabled. We have notified the property owners of the tabling. I haven't found a day yet that works for everybody, but as soon as I do, I will notify everybody and we will reschedule. So what I would ask you to do is to open the public hearing and then take, have a motion to table it indefinitely, I guess. Because we don't have a time certain at this point. So, does that make sense?
Yeah,
Okay.
the only question I might ask on that is, are we going to be able to get back to this before you depart?
Yes.
Okay. You said indefinitely, so I just wanted to clarify.
No, I'm in the next week or two is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So
So
it
I'll
all,
find a time that works for the emergency responders.
okay, sounds good. So what I'll do at this time is go ahead and open up a public hearing to consider naming a private road, Anderson Lane, and readdressing affected properties. Anybody who wants to speak, I don't see anybody here. I didn't catch if there was anybody on Zoom that may want to speak on this topic. We want to point out, once again, we do have, well, I guess for this public hearing, it is what it is. So, was there anybody on Zoom that had any comments to make on this item during this time? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing.
Make the motion to table this until a future time to be established by Monty.
Okay, I'll second that motion. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes.
Thank you, Monty.
Well, it looks like the Royals called up this kid from Junction City,
Oh,
Nick Heath. He played high school baseball for the Junction City team. They put two of their pitchers on IR, or one of them on IR and one of them just on the injury list. So. One of them was throwing in relief the other night and strained his arm in the middle of a pitch.
Whenever they, a few nights ago when they got that big lead, and I remember a few years back when they were lucky enough to win a game, is by a huge spread, and I kept yelling at them, why don't you save some of those runs and spread them out over the, No, it's still.
Well, even like last night, they were up 4-1 and won it in. It went from 4-1 to 5-4, and they just never recovered. So I wasn't expecting much. It's all good. My Braves on the National League side look pretty good, so maybe I'll have something promising to look at in the fall still.
For the next round.
Okay, so.
Well, they struggle against some excellent pitching.
If you don't want to close out of it, you can
There's
just.
some good pitchers out there.
Looking at the numbers, they haven't in now 6 games started off horribly bad, maybe with the exception of Mondesi, he's really struggling, so is Alex Gordon, but Gordon always struggles out of the gate, so.
No, that's okay, there's no one on Zoom.
Could be somebody on,
On YouTube,
yeah,
or do you want to share the document?
no, I don't necessarily, that's up to them.
So they'll still, YouTube will still see this view.
I'll even with this up.
Yep, yep, they will.
Yeah, that is kind of one of the complications we still have the live stream currently. So.
So is it true that I heard that Patrick Mahomes is now
The,
owner of the?
East wall.
Sure is.
The living cabinet and then.
I didn't know if that-
He is the youngest sports owner in history. I didn't hear the details about it yet, but
Across away from.
he's a minority partner, but
Got the island stuff, so.
Well, I'm sure he's looking for ways to invest his.
sure. Well, he comes from a baseball family. His
Bill
dad was
Well,
a
that's true.
longtime player for the Twins. So baseball's in his blood. He played baseball at Tech too. So.
Are those cabinets up to the ceiling?
Yeah.
Are they cool?
Yeah, I told her, I said, I'm just gonna run to the ceiling, I wanna show off a bunch of that wood.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
It really is. All, when I get done, I'll take a picture and print it off. It'll show a lot better than the camera. It's not, I need my phone, it's old.
Right.
I didn't either.
Yep, that's impressive.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, I was looking through one of my kitchen books.
I'm not even sure I
It's
tried.
probably 20 years old, maybe, back around 2000, but, or before, and they would never have allowed any wood to have a defect. All had to be just perfect, you know.
I like wood that has character.
Yeah, it's fitting in this situation, and it actually looks good about anywhere, you know, it's, I know when I first started in 1965, we used for beams, fake beams, for everything. A clear white pine, couldn't have even a tiny knot, and same with mahogany and stuff, and then about, I get close to 1970, first clear pine got out of sight price-wise, but then you get into the number 1 or 2 bin, and the knots then were small stuff, so we did some beams that way and some wood. It looked a lot better. It didn't look plastic. And so I've always liked the natural wood. I just tell people, well, if you want, especially Dr. Sager, I said, if you want something that's perfect, buy plastic.
Yeah.
When they print that wood grain on plastic, it's perfect.
yeah, it's not perfect because it's not wood grain. Yeah, he worked in a cabinet shop for a couple of summers way back when, and somebody would bring in a door and say, "Oh, I need a new door," and can you match up a color? And we'll make a couple of new doors for them, but the wood just itself is different than the doors, even with stain and varnish on it, and not that. You want to make more money, so the more product you produce, that works. But at the same time, it's like if you put one door here with one door here, one door here, we can match up the color. It's still not going to look the same. You really have to replace all of it. That's just the nature of that. So
I'm kind of one of those. Wood just kind of goes with wood.
Morning.
You can put different species
Hey,
of
man, I've got a
wood in the
question
same
for you.
room, and it
I
still kind
talked
of
to
complements
Jason
each other.
Smith yesterday
Do
from
it
the
right.
chamber. He wanted me to review their CARES Act proposal for the business on demand.
Yeah.
He just wanted me to look it over and just have me give him my thoughts on that. So if you could just send that.
Sure.
I told him I don't know what's going to happen with it, but I said I'd look it over and tell you what I thought. So.
What was that, John?
The on business demand proposal that the chamber put forth for the CARES Act. I talked to Jason. Wanted me to just kind of review it and just give him some general thoughts on it. I said they just kind of put a number in there because they just kind of wanted to placehold and wanted to make sure that maybe those working logistics were what they were, but there'll be some other money coming in for those sort of things here with this next stimulus package
That's
what's
what's
so
key.
yeah, so
Yeah,
and I mentioned that to
people
him.
about that.
I don't know what that is yet because they're still arguing over other semantics right now of that. And
There's still 2 more rounds, and it's not as heavily leaned towards local government.
Right.
It's more to the private
Yeah,
nonprofit.
and that's going to come through state and state only, right?
Yes.
understanding this one, but I thought I heard a rumor at one point.
I get the indication that Tammy's okay with
They were
that.
thinking about two going through counties, but I haven't heard anything
I-
since, so.
Well, everything that I'm reading is both the next two rounds are the state, they're
I-
responsible, so.
I'd heard something that potentially on the third one, there may be some variance in there. Or the state would work with, or local governments would work with the state on figuring out how to move that around, but it wouldn't be distributed that way. That's what I picked up on.
What's amazing on the schools is the numbers that we got and how much the schools and higher education that has already gotten
Mhm.
is astounding.
Yeah,
Especially higher education.
yeah.
I see in-
Especially the local one.
I see in Pot County, what Bellevue, St. Mary, about 3 of them never put in for any money.
We've got 3 that haven't put in for any, and it just.
I emailed David over at the city there and said, hey, this is coming up.
Emailed them all
Yeah.
several times.
Yeah, I've included the mayor
Yeah.
and the clerk on each of the cities.
Didn't hear anything else. I don't,
Nothing else they could.
I'm not sure, like Randolph or something at this point in time, maybe I can understand that, but Ogden with the fort and, you would think would have some measurable expense at this point in time, but.
And even our consultant was concerned about that. He says, they're being impacted. They should apply.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he wants to get them money.
Yeah.
They want to. It's not just one individual.
Well, I know that their budget's really, really tight right now, and their hard focus is on infrastructural stuff, so maybe they just figured it wasn't going to be of a benefit at this point in time. When they get back to having their formal meetings, or I guess when we all have our formal meetings again, I'll maybe figure out what the deal was
The
there.
frustrating part for me is, every once in a while you'll hear from the rural parts or, the smaller cities that the county doesn't do anything for them. And here we're trying
Yeah.
to give them access to money. And,
But the rules, some of our expenses can't be because
Yeah.
we meet certain rules. We applied with very minimal stuff because the labor that was expended was not 51% of a person. If somebody worked part-time doing some stuff, it doesn't count unless they're spending 51% of the time, and they weren't spending that much time. We had expenses, but we aren't allowed to turn it in. All we did was the materials.
Actually, that 51% just means that you can take the entire salary, so if you're tracking your time and it's less than 51%, as long as you're tracking those actual hours, you can put those in. The 51% rule just means that you can take the entire salary rather than just 51%.
That's not what our clerk took it to mean. Because we had somebody who was doing part-time stuff,
Yeah,
and they kept track of it, but she said we weren't allowed to submit for that.
so and this is Riley, right?
Yes.
So you do actually have some numbers in there for estimates of what you might have related to COVID. So since that's not part of what you have in there as reimbursable, you could use it in that portion, that knowing that you still could only get up to that total she submitted, but you could submit those for that second portion for that direct aid. So
That was my
it
time,
potentially
too.
is not lost.
Oh,
You
okay.
could still get it.
I'll
The only
let her
way
know
you
that
would be short is because she budgeted for all 4 of your employees,
For 2 weeks, yeah.
right? And so the only way you would end up short would be if all 4 of you got it, if all 4 of you had to take that, and you still have this part-time person. But if all 4 of you don't get it and you do submit that part-time person, you could still recap that. So keep that in mind.
I'll let her know, like she said, because when we started going through this, I said, well, we can, because we had, one of our summer guys was going around spraying down equipment, cleaning stuff and doing that kind of stuff. He said, well, what 51% if I couldn't submit it?
No,
Tammy,
you
maybe
can.
could you send out an email just kind of clarifying some of that to those small cities,
Yep.
the ones that we haven't received anything from, and encourage them to contact you directly, because it is hard to understand, for all of us.
Oh, I know.
We have the advantage because we're meeting with a consultant weekly, if not twice a week, and so reach out to them and explain to them about the 51%, a little bit, but say, please contact me, maybe I can help guide you so you can recoup some of those costs, because we really do want to get it to
Yeah.
everyone.
And it wasn't a great deal of money, but.
No, but every dollar counts right now.
And that's every dollar we don't actually have
Because
to
the
send
smaller
back and
cities,
stays
it
here in
doesn't take a great
the
deal to be.
Oh, I
able to,
local
know,
region.
yeah, I know.
I know you know, but
Yeah.
So, and yeah, make sure that you let Doris know that she can contact me, email or phone anytime.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And if I don't know the answer, I will find out the answer because they do have weekly meetings with the KAC recovery group as well. And so people are constantly asking questions and every day we get new guidance on those questions. So,
And she said she'd set in on a couple of those meetings.
yeah,
It is 9:35.
okay.
We're in the conversation anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. So.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Tammy Robinson, Budget and Finance Officer, here with a brief update on the CARES funding. The first thing I want to let you know is we have our assessments in. The Budget and Planning Committee, along with our consultant, are reviewing the assessments. I'm asking clarifying questions out to the entities that we need more information from. We're reviewing eligibility requirements. We're also reviewing for any possibility of duplication of costs with the funds that they've already received. And we're considering other financing sources that may be available to these entities so that when we make our decisions to allocate, we have it so we're not duplicating and we're trying to get as many dollars out to the community as possible. The next thing I want to say is the Spark Committee met yesterday, and every day we're getting updated guidance based on the questions that are being submitted to the recovery office. And weekly webinars are addressing new issues and concerns that the entities have out there. I am taking phone calls and emails and answering questions for other entities as well outside the local governmental on their eligibility and how that fits into our process with the CARES funding. So with the Sparks task force meeting yesterday on the round 2 distributions, they do have 314 million slated to go out on that round 2 distribution, which will be overseen by the state directly. Round 3 does reflect that they'll have 298 million that's going out. So with round 2, they have 4 areas that they're looking at. Public health, which encompasses nursing homes, preparedness and mitigation for health departments, local and healthcare facilities and providers, and mental health. And they have $100.1 million that's being reserved for those areas. They have economic development, which encompasses business retention, food programs, and workforce and retraining. And that's 78.6 million that they've slated for those areas. They have education, which targets early childhood development, higher education, and the community and technical colleges, with 75 million reserved for those programs. And then they have connectivity that they're looking at, which is with broadband and partnership agreements, and that has 60 million. Public health, economic development, and education was approved by the Finance Council. Connectivity, they have to bring more information back to look at that. One other thing I do want to make publicly announce is that the federal government is looking at revenue shortfalls as a target for what may be possible for reimbursement. And the Senate and the House are divided on that. So one's looking at potentially a 25%, the other one's not wanting to give anything. So there will be negotiations and we just don't know how that's going to fall yet. So keep that in mind for anybody who's listening on this that's local government, because it may have an impact on us as well as at the state level. Again, we do have the Riley Cares at rileycountyks.gov. That's available for anyone to address questions to. Our consultant, Wood O'Brien's, it has that available to them to look at it anytime, as well as the Budget and Planning Committee has the employees that can look at that. We can answer your questions. If we don't know the answer, we will get the answer for you. Do be patient, because since this is such a moving target, sometimes it takes a day or two for us to get the information, and sometimes it changes again in another day or two. So the best thing is to continually follow these updates, which occur on Mondays and Thursdays at the BOCC meeting, and we'll get you as much information as possible. Are there any questions or concerns?
I have none.
Go ahead, Rich.
just, and Greg, it's something you might consider, although it's not approved yet, but which would be a significant change is the allowance of revenue shortfalls. They said that wasn't allowed at the beginning, but every city is gonna have revenue shortfalls, so that may be a way that small cities could recoup some money, you know, because your businesses are collecting less sales tax probably.
Sales tax is
Oh, okay, so,
local, because
So-
people are staying, Dollar General's good.
yeah.
Everybody's going there instead of coming into Manhattan.
So there's different things to look at. And then the other thing I think that's key to point out that we're starting to review is, remember, we got 14.994 million. Just our request to date from public entities exceeds 16 million.
Yeah.
So you get questions about, you know, other things that we can fund, nonprofits, businesses. I mean, we're gonna have to cut that back significantly to stay within our 14.994 million. So it's highly unlikely we'll have additional funds to go elsewhere. And there's no way we'd be able to consider revenue shortfalls, even if it is allowed, just based on the cost that we have. But as Tammy said, we're going through to see if all of those costs are allowable at this time. And so still a lot of work to be done.
So the total amount of assessment right now was 16 million.
Over 16 million.
Over.
I'm surprised it wasn't.
And that
more.
is just your cities,
Right.
your schools, the county, RCPD, and higher education, tech college.
Okay.
Manhattan Christian College.
I
So,
thought it
and
would
that's-
actually be more, so, and
Well, I mean, there are programs that within the city, they're requesting to oversee.
Yeah.
However, some of those programs that they have are ones that are also on the Chamber of Commerce list that you're going to be getting. So keep
Right.
in mind that the city has that on their list as well, so they're duplicated. As well as Ascension via Christie sent
Right.
some requests in.
I saw
Again,
one
they're
of those
duplicated,
already.
some of it's duplicated on what the city's wanting to oversee. So that's where we're really trying hard to make sure things are not duplicated, because then that's just gonna hurt us in the end if we're not aware of that,
Right.
and we have to pull it back.
Okay.
The other thing to keep in mind is Via Christi is a private hospital that bills and collects revenue. So anything that they ask for, we do have to keep in mind that they have billings that go out. So we don't want to be doubling their income per se from revenue they get from insurance as well as these funds.
Right.
So those are definitely considerations that we're trying to take into play and understand, you know, what they would really truly need to recoup.
Okay.
So there's a lot of those factors as well.
Well, it also sounds like to me that most of the entities that put in applications were pretty thoughtful and thorough and understanding of both the money and where we're at and where everybody's at in the process too. So maybe that helped to keep it down just a little bit. They're just, or maybe I'm just being naive. I don't know.
You know, I mean, what we have is public
Yeah.
information, so, you know, the CARES funding, I mean, I was not aware how much actually had went to the school districts and the colleges, and so when you look at those funds that they've received and then what they're asking, you know, again, those are considerations as how much more will they be getting in this next round or
Right.
even in the next stimulus
Right.
that goes out, because the next federal stimulus also is addressed
Yeah.
in several of those areas, and local government is not.
Right.
And also what they're eligible for different programs through FEMA.
Sure.
And that's something else the consultant's analyzing. And so it's very complex and
There's
complicated.
Department of Homeland Security, Department of Education, they're separate administrative funding sources that are gonna go into that. And if I read that right, one of them's out of this particular new federal stimulus is gonna be like 56 million or something, 56 billion, excuse me, for higher education, something like 72 billion, and they're kind of arguing over the semantics of that for public education. So, yeah.
And so the commissioners know if, you know, the consultant goes through it and we agree, you know, that, okay, all 16.1 something that we're at right now is an allocable request, we're gonna have to reduce all of them by
Right.
some amount
Right.
to stay within our allotted amount. So
Okay.
there's a lot of things to be considered still.
Yep,
Good
it
to know.
is, it's requiring speed But again, especially because decisions and guidance is changing daily and future funding will have a huge impact on this. It's making it really difficult for us to get to where we need to be to meet those deadlines.
Right.
We're working on it and we're doing our best to get there. We don't want to leave anybody out if it's at all possible. However, when we first looked at this, we thought 15 million, how are we ever going to allocate that? Well, as you sit down and you actually look at what is out there and what is needed, it has been a surprise to me that how quickly it's been ate up on requests.
Yeah.
And this is where we're at right now. We really don't know what we're going to be looking at in September. Our estimates may not even be close to meeting our needs by the end of December.
I do point out to a lot of people, we're not in a recovery mode right now. We're still very much so in response, and in some aspects, not even proactive response. And we're just kind of
preparation.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's a good point. Okay.
All right, I have down to send you that proposal from the
Please.
chamber.
And you'll be on the call this afternoon too, right, or no?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
don't think I have it unless I need to be. I have a couple other things that I have to follow
Kind of,
this
okay, kind of,
afternoon.
okay. That's fine.
It's just nuts lately.
I'm sure some of these questions will come up, so I'll do my best to answer them.
That'd be great. And if there's anything that you need, you can do Jabber and do a quick chat and I can respond if you need me.
Okay,
What time is it, Joe?
2:00.
I've got two things on, so I'm on that one or not.
No, you're usually not on the recovery task force.
Shiloh will be on it.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, Shiloh is.
Okay.
And she's been attending all of our meetings.
Okay, so I guess that's it for me this morning.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Next up is Leon. I know I heard and saw him back there somewhere.
You what?
I heard and saw you. I don't know which one of those is worse, but.
Well, good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, sir.
Leon Hobson, Director of Public Works, loved by all.
Yeah.
I'm here this morning to present the Keats Park Shelter construction project. Last year, some of the money for this was put into CIP from the monies that were left over from the community parks budget, as well as the parks budget itself. And we had the money last year to also go ahead and place part of the concrete that will go under the shelter. So the project has started. We're here today to ask permission to move forward with the purchase of the shelter. We want to keep, as the sole provider, the same company that has done the ones up in the north part of the park, the ones we've done over in Fairmont Park. So we're pretty much trying to keep that same concept and the same look. So that's why we're using the same company as a sole provider. And so we're here today to ask permission to purchase that shelter from AB Creative in the amount of $18,500. And to then also authorize us to use the monies in the CIP that are there for the parks, or for the shelter as well, for the installation.
So if I read all that right, we had set that aside already, so that money is already there, so we're not taking out of this year's pool from that, correct?
Right.
Okay.
The concrete pad was partially poured, but it run out.
Good. When we did the one over in Fairmont, we poured the whole pad.
Right.
Placed the whole pad out there. And then Riley Construction, when they came in, they found it easier because rather than digging the holes for the poles for the footing, they went ahead and cut off that outer edge of the concrete to place the foundations underneath of the poles, and then pour the whole thing back in as one piece. So we said, rather than us put it out there and then have the contractor come in and tear it out, we just opted to just pour the center portion of it. So that's why it says partially. And if we don't use Riley Construction this time for construction, this company may do it altogether different and it'll still be wrong, so.
I move to approve the purchase of the shelter house in the amount of $18,500 from AD Creative and provide for the installation of the shelter at each park.
I'll second that motion. Are there any further discussions?
The only thing that I might add, do we need to put in there the monies from CIP or is it already?
It's already there.
Okay.
That's what I assumed, but I did want that clarification. Okay. Okay, any other?
Yeah, I think it does need to be added in the motion, though it wasn't included in the motion, so that's a good point.
Do you want to amend the motion?
I got all, I'm adding it here.
Okay. Is there any further dialogue? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
All of you, please.
thank you very much.
Next, Mr. Hobson at 10 o'clock, just like a bad.
Again? Again? Yeah,
Once you get him started, you know.
I don't know if it's a matter of luck.
Well, I'm more consistent than the Royals, let's put it that way.
You're no doubt about that. No doubt about that.
Hey, John,
Yes.
so have you watched any of the, has there been a home game yet with the Royals?
No, they're, tomorrow starts the first home series.
Gary was just telling me that you could cut out of your picture.
Yeah, you have season tickets or whatnot, you have an option for a little extra fee to, they'll snap a photo, they'll put it on a cardboard cutout, put it on there, and they're piping crowd noise in there, and person that's, at least in Cleveland, that was doing that, wasn't doing it real well. Usually when the home team strikes out, that's usually not the time to go, yay! Maybe that's a Cleveland thing, maybe I'm jumping the gun there, but still.
Oops, yeah, you don't know, that could be real.
It could be, it is Cleveland. Even listening to it on the radio, and it's Steve Stewart and Denny Matthews, and it doesn't even sound the same on the radio. I mean, you can tell a distinct difference in broadcasting because they're not in the booth together.
Our nice new world, John.
I know. I'm learning stuff that I just never thought would ever be possible, but here we are.
Living in historic times.
They started some of that way back when, because there was one of the K-State basketball games that the announcers weren't even at the game.
Actually, all the announcing actually goes to Jefferson City and gets transmitted back. So all the producers and execs and stuff that do all those calls are actually Learfield Sports, which is located out of Jefferson City, but the announcers are usually there courtside. So, and that'll be interesting to see how that works coming into the fall and the fall sports and then getting into basketball season.
I was thinking there were some games that were just.
I don't remember, I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't either. I'm probably making it up.
It'd be easier.
If you're more confident, we'd all believe you.
It'll probably be easier to space out announcing maybe
yeah,
for football because of press box space, but when you get into basketball season, that gets a little tougher. So they'll probably have to have a centralized location and do that via technology or something too, if that happens.
See, we're USD 378, our school district up there is gonna start August 20th, their scheduled, regular scheduled day. Made that decision. Blue Valley was meeting this morning to make their decision.
I saw where the Kansas State High School Athletic Association is
Yep.
moving forward with all fall sports as scheduled.
Yeah, I saw that.
I didn't get a chance to read all the specific requirements and regulations or whatnot. I'm sure that, or maybe they're still in the process of planning that. But I noticed Manhattan High on their Facebook page put out their schedule. I'm all mad. We're playing Junction City awfully early this year. We got some district play later in the year, so.
And Greg, just thinking about it, I don't know, it might be a question for Doris, and I'll run it by Tammy to talk to Tammy about. I don't know if a city can request money to maybe assist businesses that have maybe seen a slowdown in your community. So that might be another way you guys could
And we
get some of this
She
funding.
put out reaches to the businesses in town, to see if anyone needed anything. Didn't get anything back from them.
I'd strongly encourage him, because that's what our consultant's doing. He's saying, get creative. He says he'd just as soon be on the offensive in requesting and get something maybe that he can't, and then you can deny it. But, to try and get some of this funding, because it's really meant to get out to all the communities. So just trying to think of different ideas where maybe we could get you some money.
And I know at least one of the restaurants used that PPP or whatever, that payroll protection. They went through there and got, and that's why they said they ignore, because what they got through there took care of what their problem.
Yeah, just trying to think of some ideas to help you guys out.
Yeah.
And if you yourself think of any ideas, just give us a call. We don't know the answer. Like Tammy said, we got the resources to find out the answers.
Honestly, that's what, as I'm hearing about it here, I've been coming up with ideas and gave a list to Doris.
Good.
Get some of those. Now you're stretching it too far, Greg. They can't call that,
But that's okay. I mean, that's what we have the consultants do.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. There's not a fine or a penalty for asking for something that's not allowed.
Well, that's what I said. Yeah, all I do is say no.
Right, exactly.
I mean, I understand that's why you've got the consultant, because there's so many rules.
That's why I expressed to the commissioners when I requested that early on, that $150,000 would be cheap, and it'll make this community more than that amount of money, and just additional FEMA monies that you got identified as other entities can use and apply for. Plus, you're allowed to use, allowed to pay for that expense from that federal monies.
Yeah. Well, if you've got the CDBG money or some of those, you always have to have a grant administrator, for all those things.
Right.
Handle all the paperwork details.
No, I did not. I wasn't really quite sure how this happened.
Well, we probably need to ask.
Good luck.
Well,
You can't see their faces on the.
I like that.
But I can, and that's what's so good about it. You got matching masks. Is this like a department thing?
It's a custodial staff issue.
They look like those, they have Raleigh County Public Works on them.
Yeah.
Costs more.
That was extra.
Okay, you're on again.
All right, well, good morning again.
Good morning.
Leon Hobson, Director of Public Works, here to talk to you this morning about our highway use permit requirements and procedures. As I said in the car, our current system is very antiquated, vague, doesn't have a lot of detail to it. We have run into some issues time to time with utilities not being placed as we would like to see them in our right of way. Sometimes we're not even aware of them going in. So we, several years ago, decided to look at a different system, and we took this to the Road and Bridge Advisory Board. They spent several meetings, well, probably almost a year. Numerous meetings, there we go. Putting together the document that's in front of you. We looked at what some other counties were doing, what other areas were doing. And we came up with this. We brought this to the commissioners back in December of 18. At that time, they suggested some changes, and we did take those changes back to the advisory board. The advisory board was fine with those changes. For whatever reason, the document did not make it back to the commissioners for final approval. And now with Commissioner Ford's addition to the commission, I wanted to spend some time to go through the document again today. So that's the purpose of the meeting today. And you see, it's been adopted today, so you have no option now but to adopt it.
I think we need to go through the car document next and make some changes there too.
So I just highlighted some of the things that I thought might be important. The county, with any document, there, especially as broad as this is, there's always going to be circumstances that come up that you can't cover in a document. And so we put this caveat in there that the county engineer has the authority to exempt both public or private utility from any and all of these requirements. Part of that was the bonding. We looked at because, if a farmer wants to just run a line across the road from a well to his house, I don't know that we're going to require a bond for that. So those would be some things that might be exempted. And other things, it doesn't matter. You put a document together and somebody will find a situation that doesn't fit. So in here, we've got the private utilities that I next highlighted area. Private utilities are allowed only to cross the county right of way. We don't allow them to be on the road parallel to. Probably one of the bigger changes is the application. We are requiring performance bond, cashier's check, letter of credit. We want to make sure they have their liability insurance, and then if there are fees associated with it, what those would be. And the fees are allowed by KSA 17-1902 to offset any cost, and those fees would be established by the county engineer. Again, trying to establish a matrix of what those fees would be if you have just somebody going out there and like I said, putting a line across, or even running, Evergy running 8 to 10 new poles down the road, or you have like Twin Valley when they came in and they did miles and miles and miles of it. So I think the fee will have to be kind of negotiated at the time.
Has there been any logistical or procedural changes from Evergy going from West Star over to Evergy? They're kind of
That's what
doing.
we've seen,
Okay, and that's been,
other than the name changes on the truck. That didn't take very long.
and new trucks.
Yeah. I still call them Westar other than that.
Yeah. The nice new billboard they have at Royal Stadium now, Kauffman
Oh, really?
Stadium. Yeah. They bought out Kansas Power and Light over on that side too.
Oh,
So,
yeah, that's right.
yeah, so, okay, I was just curious. Then that's been about 7 months or so since they made this. So if you were to see them, you probably would have already. So, okay.
Our current program does require plans, however, it doesn't have the detail that sometimes we would like to have, and so we're going back. And so this just kind of, the whole document kind of just spells everything out a little better as far as what we need to see in advance. And that opportunity to view prior to permit issuance, the county shall approve the planned location. Most of the time, we are asking Evergy now to stake their poles, where they're gonna put their poles. We learned a hard lesson on that one, up on Barton Road.
And guy wires.
And guy wires, same thing. We wanna know where those are gonna go in advance now, so, and they've been very congenial about doing that. They have no problem with doing it, so. We did, let's see, notification, that's one of the big ones. A lot of times we don't know when they're out there working on our right of way or our easements, and we want to know that in advance. We're gonna do, if we ever find a second inspector, our thought process is that we will use them to help monitor the work on the right of way or the easements. So once we have a permit in place, we know when it's gonna be done. They can stop by, they can make sure they have their permit with them, and that things are going according to what they sent in on their application. Enforcement, again, we would have that cashier's check, performance bond, or whatever if things didn't, if they didn't come in and fix them. They just walked away from it. We would have some method to come in and fix things. Most of the time we haven't had any issues with that, but always want to make sure we have some avenue there in case it was ever needed. Permanent sign identifications where they cross the road. This is something we haven't done in the past, but if they're going across the road, we'd like to know where that is. So just for future planning. I mean, that may not be as critical now with with the one call and being able to come out and mark the utilities where they are, but at least for the initial looking at a project, we go, oh, well, there's a gas line, or oh, we've got an underground cable here. The liability and bonds, like I said, that's new. We just put in that they shall deposit a standard refundable fee of $1,000 with their permit. And again, we talked about that could be more depending on the size of the project. And we also talked about down here, a permit holder could submit just an annual $20,000 performance bond and just have that on record. And some of the utility companies used to do that. And then we kind of got away from having everybody do it. And so this would go back, and I don't think this would be any big detriment or any big problem with any of them to just put the performance bond in place for a year from January to January. And then we don't have to worry about, getting the money and then returning the money and that sort of thing. Work zone traffic, this is probably the one that we had the least amount of I can't think of the word I want to say here. We didn't have much in work zone traffic on our current program. So we thought it was important that they submit, how are they going to control the traffic along the road while they're working? Well, if you're clear on the outside edge, putting in power poles, you might have a few pickups out on the road or whatever, but you're not going to be close to the edge of the road. You may not need much. But otherwise, if you're going to be working right up along the edge of the road, you may need something more significant. And then if you're going to have a road closure, of course, we're going to need to know that. we're gonna have to be able to provide that to emergency services, get a public notice out on that. So there's gonna be some time issues there. And flaggers. If we're gonna restrict traffic down to one lane, there are times when flaggers are going to be required. And that's something we really haven't done in the past. As far as operations, of course, we put in here that if there's a utility that has an emergency repair, we're not going to ask them to come in and get permission to replace their utility. But we are asking them to, once everything is done, that they then put in a request or that shows what they have done or whatever and do that. So damage to the roads, again, a lot of this is just more emphasis on things that could happen out there. You know, we're saying that somewhere in here, we say that, you know, it needs to be brought back to as good as or better than it was before. And so, you know, if there's damage to our signs or pavements, you know, we want those fixed right away, especially if it's a regulatory sign that needs to be repaired. Open excavations, we don't want those left open, you know, through the night. Protection of the vegetation, again, all these are just more clarification of the things that they need to be aware of. We don't want tracked equipment to be operated on paved roads without prior approval. So, I mean, if they want to put tires or cardboard or plywood or other means down to where they're not going to damage the pavement, you know, we're going to allow them to do that. Sometimes they can use a rubber track, and that doesn't create us any problems. So, again, that's why we put in there without prior approval. So, we don't want them to store things in the right-of-way without prior approval. Again, those items that are in the right-of-way become, they're within the safety zone. They become hazards out there for the driving public if somebody were to go off the road and hit one of those. Construction items, this more or less just tells them where they need to be. Here we are on above-ground installations. 10 feet from the edge of the road, if there's a 40-foot right-of-way, 12 feet from the edge of the road for a 60-foot right-of-way. That includes pedestal guys, anchors, all those kind of things. Underground installations, we don't want any utility to be in the roadway itself, except unless you're crossing underneath of it. And then it tells you if you're going to do that, we want you 3 feet below the existing grade. Fiber optics, we want a minimum of 42 inches. One of the problems, most of the larger utilities have a way to trace and locate their lines, but some of the smaller ones, the older ones did not. So we want to make sure there's a tracer wire or a way to locate that utility in the future. We talk about bridge attachments, manholes, borings. You know, they need to be back away from the edge of the road so far. And again, these are just requirements that were not in the original program. And the last one there, all paving or repaving subgrade work shall be subject to inspection by Riley County personnel. And again, this is where our inspectors would come in and we would get prior notice. We could have them, you know, pull off one of their inspection projects, go out there, take a look at it. You know, we've got other people that are driving by that can stop and can look and make sure that things are going according to the plan that was submitted. And the cleanup and restoration, so here's where I was talking about, shall be restored to a condition equal to that. And then one of the things that we haven't done in the past is to have a final acceptance of the program and issue, or not the program, but the project, and issue a notice of acceptance of that project. And once that has been issued, that starts the warranty period, which we're asking them to warranty that work for up to 1 year. So if there's settlement, other issues that develop because of the work that they did, we would ask them to come back and fix those. And again, there's some criteria in there depending on, you know, if it's If it occurs in the driving surface, that becomes an immediate response, and if not, then, they have 30 days to come in and work on it. And then we would hold that deposit bond or letter up to the period of the 1 year. And then we would return it unless it's one of those that they have on it for a yearly basis. So it's more lengthy than the 1-page, 2-page thing, the document that we have now. And I think the application form that we developed is similar in nature, but these A through G here tie that document we just looked at, those guidelines and requirements, tie it to this application form. So if they sign this application form, they're really signing off on all the stuff on the other document as well. So that's probably the main thing that this document does. Gary, do you have anything you want to add on the deal?
No, I think we pretty well covered it. They're required to have both the permit and this document on site with them. I think it really just kind of wraps up some loose ends that we've been dealing with. And I think a lot more counties are starting to go with this. A lot of the permits that they're using are something that was developed in the late 60s, early 70s by KDOT, I believe, and the counties just adopted them, and a lot of the rural ones are still using those. We've got a real good communication line going with our local utilities. I think a lot of the problems that you run into are when projects are let from headquarters and the person or the entity that gets that project turns around and subs it out to somebody else. We've seen that happen, so I think this puts us in a better spot when we're dealing with these.
So I know that Commissioner Rodriguez is not here today, and whether the two of you would want to go ahead and approve this as a county document, or would you rather wait until all three of you here? I can bring this back when Marvin's here and we can just do the formal approval on it. Of course, I'm being presumptuous here that you're going to approve it, but
I'm fine with going ahead now.
I am too. I don't.
I'd make
I
a
don't
motion
see
in Raleigh County, have a use permit requirements and procedures and associated application form as presented, be passed.
I was just going to add to that I didn't see anything major in there that would cause any complications at this point in time. So I'll go ahead and second that motion. Is there any final dialogue or discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
all right, well, thank you very much.
Mhm.
Thank you, Leon.
I do have one other quick topic if you have a couple.
No, you had two and two on that.
It's called a commission agenda report.
Yeah.
I don't know whether any of you saw the news where they're talking about the city sales tax. I still have that concern that I mentioned here a couple of weeks ago, that it's being presented that the sales tax program that the city is going to propose replaces the one that's the one the county has. And now, in essence, it does from their perspective. I see where they're getting that language, but then it doesn't really, they're inferring that the county is not going to renew their current sales tax or put it on the ballot to renew it. To me, that's very confusing, because if people think it's going to replace it and you're not going to see any difference of tax, I mean, it's just going to be a continuation of the half cent, and they're not going to see any difference, then when the commission or the county commission decides to put theirs on the ballot, theirs is going to be seen as a new tax. So
That was my lament all along, but like I say, I think it's good for the city, what they're doing. but it's not good for the county, and the county is showing the most exemplary use of what they designed the sales tax to do. My feeling is it's going to be harmful to the county because it's going to make it difficult, like you say, if the future commissioners would decide to do something. First of all, by the time it would go to be put on a ballot, the budget for 2023 would already be done in 2022. So there's going to be a blank year in there anyway, because it wouldn't be on until the fall, the ballot's in the fall. So unless there was a special election, but I mean, just my feeling, I mean, the city is in charge of doing what they do. I understand why the city wants to, because they have to have the money, and it takes in Potawatomi County portion of Manhattan, going to generate more money for them. I think the appropriate thing would be to continue the sales tax as it's currently designed, but that's just my opinion. And Commissioner Ford didn't feel that this was the appropriate year to do that, and that may not be the case, but I knew that this would probably occur. The city would go ahead. I don't think it'd be possible to add another sales tax on top of that one at a future date.
Yeah, and I'm not here to debate whether the city should be doing it or they shouldn't be doing it. I just think the way it's being presented makes it sound like it replaces the current Riley County one, and Riley County may not, put it on a ballot in the future. And so it kind of says it's going to replace it, and then that makes the Riley County one become a new tax. And really, it's just the reverse of that. So I just, that's all. I'm not here to debate,
Sure, absolutely.
I know
I mean,
we're not
that's
debating, but I'm not here to promote whether the city put that on or not. I just think it's the method in which it's being presented.
So my comments are that the way that the sales tax currently is the appropriate way, because it treats the entire county, including Manhattan, well, and it'd be a continuation. As far as I'm concerned, they're touting it as a continuation, which it isn't, because it includes Potawatomi County.
Right.
So it is basically a new tax. It may not be additional monies in the Raleigh County portion of Manhattan, but it is a new tax. Extending the current tax would involve, as it's written right now, with the county.
Well, and I guess, I think it's just me speaking, but if the commission could in some way say, and I think, well, let me rephrase this, because I think, Commissioner Ford, you've said this many times, is it's not that you're opposed to putting it on the ballot, you just didn't want to do it this year. But if the commission could come out as a whole and say, in 2021, we intend to put this back on the ballot as a continuation. Something to get it out there that, yes, you intend to put it on the ballot to continue this, and then that's all I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
If there's any way that you can do that, because I really think that the way it's coming across, and maybe I'm misled on the way it's coming across, but I just see that as detrimental to the county in the future.
Well, absolutely, because the county's done such a good job utilizing that money, and what's going to happen in the future now, probably in 2023 and on, as we face bridge failures, culvert replacement, road work, that's going to have to come out of property tax.
Property tax, exactly.
And that's going to be property tax on citizens that live in Manhattan that may or may not use that significantly or at all. That's one of the concerns I have. The second concern I also have too is if the city does put this on there, and much like last year, this one fails, then you're starting to build basically a voting fatigue in terms of maybe not just sales tax, just tax at all. So any other entity, whether it's the city or county or whomever does that later, may not just pass because the last series of them haven't passed. And that's just kind of where we are. Yeah, I am not against the county tax itself, as I've suggested. I just think with the onset of COVID, the economic downturn, the unemployment, everything else, I just think it's strategically and morally wrong at this point in time to ask for extension, sales tax, anything until we have a better understanding foundationally of where we're at with all those things. And that's That's been where I've been at since day one. So,
Hi, Commissioners.
hello.
I just want to second what Leon has stated and maybe take it a step further. In my opinion, we as the county need to make a concerted effort to make the public aware that we intend to continue this tax. And one the city's got out there, from our view, is not going to replace what we have in place right now. I'm sure you're all aware that if we were to lose these tax funds, it would devastate any kind of improvement project program that we have. Everything that we've done in the last 15 years to replace bridges, replace roadways, has come from that sales tax fund.
It's the only thing we do in the county sales tax based. So outside of that, we'd be much like the school districts. We'd be funding everything, including that with property tax. And that, I don't know, I did a general estimate in my mind on that, and I came up with about a $2.5 million increase to cover that. And that's not a floor nor a ceiling. That's just the basic estimate. That's a pretty large, significant amount at this particular point in time. And I'll reiterate once again, that's for the entire county, which includes citizens of Manhattan, whether they use that rural infrastructure or not.
Well, that's the danger of just going with the city only is if it should pass, it would probably negate successful additional tax in the future by the county. And as Commissioner Ford pointed out, the county taxpayers in the city of Manhattan, the road and bridge repairs and replacements would be on their property tax also. So by going ahead with the sales tax now, it could potentially increase property tax in Raleigh County, including Manhattan.
But here's the other part with that. Let's hypothetically say in the next month, we're able to get ours on the ballot along with the cities. Then you'd have two competing taxes on the ballot at the same time. And I don't think you'll pass either one of them doing that at the same time either. So, yes, Rich.
And mine isn't about the timing, but just so many times when we talk about this, the only reference is made to the city and the county. I think one of the extreme benefits of the county is the small cities get to participate as well. And while their dollar amount isn't large, it significantly helps them with their infrastructure. And that's been my biggest contention with it, is it helps all Riley County entities. The city with the county sales tax gets a much larger portion of it than the county does. And I think that's part of the education, the commissioners provide at this time. I think Leon has a very good point. Everything you would read in the city documents, which I've read, and through the media, all makes the reference, as Leon says, is that this is going to replace the county sales tax, and gives reference, that the county wouldn't go forward with it then. That's just not necessarily true.
No,
I think the public needs to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with, for instance, the chamber, because they've got a vested interest in, particularly on the economic development side, and they're well aware of our intentions to continue forward at some particular point in time. I get the indication that there's mixed opinions, even from their angle, whether or not this is the smart move or whatnot. I think they were hopeful that maybe we would be able to sit down at the table and come up with some outside the box thing that was going to work for everybody moving forward, and still maybe be able to draw that into one package. But it doesn't appear that that's going to be possible at this point in time. So that part is what it is. And to kind of piggyback off of what Rich just said there, of course, I don't represent the northern smaller communities, but I do represent Ogden, and I have spent some time discussing that both with city staff and their city council over there too. And $88,000 and some change doesn't seem like a lot of money in the grand scheme of things, but for them, when they're working with a budget that very potentially in the next 5 to 10 years can be rendered insolvent, every little bit helps, including that municipal split that they don't have to do internally and municipally. So yeah, that's a very good point. So I'm not for sure what that answer is. And like I said, even if we right at this moment decided and went ahead and went through with ours this year, I don't think you're going to pass two separate taxes in the same year.
It had been just as it exists now, just an extension. Right. Would be the only hope of one passing. But no, the two of them, no.
It's not. I would see in that scenario that both of them would probably fail at that point in time. That would be my.
And just correct me if I'm wrong, Leon, but I think Leon and I have discussed this before. It just seems like it would benefit the community if the commissioners had a discussion on this and, someone made a public announcement about the sales tax. I mean, we can have this dialogue, and it's, like I said, John, it's not about timing or putting it on the ballot this year, but just to educate the public that, no, this does not mean Riley County is not going to go forward with the renewal of the current half-cent sales tax, which, and I would part of the education, significantly help the small cities and the city of Manhattan, which receives more sales tax through the county sales tax than even Riley County does.
Yeah, and with, like Gary said, without it, it'd be devastating to improvements to our infrastructure.
I've seen our transportation improvement plan because obviously I'm a county representative on NPO, and between now and 2030, and this is pre-COVID, I might add too. So this doesn't add that component to it. We were down about $2.1 million total for not just roads and bridges, but just the overall maintenance and upkeep of all the relatable transportation infrastructure. So, and that's a larger challenge, I think, for counties because municipalities can move some pieces around between the property tax and the sales tax equation. Most counties cannot. So that doesn't take into the township into that as well. So,
So Rich, are you suggesting that the commission have a work session?
Well, I think it'd be good for them to have discussion, and I think it would behoove them to make the public aware. And like I say, it's not about a competing sales tax issue this year. It's just education that, okay, we know there's dialogue going on about a half-cent sales tax. Just want to make it clear. It is not a replacement of the Riley County half-cent sales tax. This is a new tax that includes Potawatomi County residents, which our current one does not.
Right.
And this tax, while it was discussed early on by the city about sharing with the county and sharing with the small cities, there's no longer that discussion.
Right.
So this is a completely different tax than what was even discussed 6 months ago.
and I think that's the component right there that's got some of the other entities, including some members of the chamber, concerned because
Commissioner Rodriguez is here Monday. I think we ought to have a discussion and formulate a so-called press release or public information then document.
Clancy.
He's hiding.
Bring your socks and come in here.
Just generally when the commissioners have some sort of public statement or something like that, you generally draft something up like that. So just urge you to be involved and aware.
Sure. You're talking about a work session on Monday?
it's Monday.
Board of discussion.
Well, I think you need to call, work session would clarify that that's what you're doing. Work sessions normally don't generate action, they can, but that would be, to me, one way to phrase it. Work session on, I mean, otherwise you're gonna send possibly a conflicting message out there as to what the point is. So I haven't thought out what you would call it.
I mean, would it just at this point in time be just kind of a by consensus press release?
Well, I think you need to call it what it is, and it's a work session to discuss Riley County half-cent sales tax. I mean, that's really what it is discussing.
Yeah.
Sure.
The only drawback I have on that right now is I'm not officially for sure what the city is going to do yet, so I don't know how to really react to all of it. So I don't know what that, I mean.
I think the part, and Leon, correct me if I'm wrong, you're the one that brought it up, the part that some members of the county staff are concerned about is the way that it's being presented, whether they go forward or not. Is that the educational piece that's being presented to the public and the media right now is different than what may really happen.
Everything's fine. We're not interested, and the city's going to go ahead, et cetera. And so I think the public needs to know exactly what this means, what's going on.
Well, I do think that when we get into more, I guess, we take the uncertainty out of the times that we're in right now. I think once you place that on there, I think the rural population will still probably be inclined to vote for that at the appropriate time.
You could call it a work, I'm just thinking out loud here, so I apologize in advance. You could, if you do a work session, you could call it discussion of the impact of renewal or non-renewal of the Riley County half-cent countywide sales.
Okay.
Something along those lines.
Okay.
Because isn't that the gist of what you'd be talking about?
Well, that's part of it, I think, but the other part's the clarification of how it's being represented currently.
But the other part of that too is whatever the city decides to put on there, I mean, are there gonna be any changes to maybe what we wanna do to better, I don't know, I just think it's still a fluid scenario as we speak right now, until we know officially or not officially, because it's not necessarily official that they're going to do that, they're arguing over bits and pieces of it too, so maybe we're being a little preemptive on that. I'm not saying that the discussion doesn't need to be had, but once again, I'm talking about maybe the timing of the discussion right now.
Well, I think the important thing is that the public knows that it is not an extension of an existing
Right.
tax, period. It is a new tax.
It's a new tax, and it doesn't mean that Riley County is not gonna come forward with the renewal
Right, correct.
of a 1/2-cent road and bridge sales tax, which the city of Manhattan and all of the cities in Riley County would benefit from.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think didn't the commission make that statement that they were going to renew the sales tax?
We're going to propose it to be renewed at some point in time.
To put it on the ballot.
Yeah, they just agreed that they weren't going to do it this year.
Right.
Right. So
I
I just think that statement needs to be out there.
Yeah.
It's Riley County Commissioner's intent to renew or put it on the ballot to renew that sales tax in 2022.
We intend to do that after we find out the impact of COVID-19 on the county.
And I'm
impact
kind of
on the
hopeful
county
that,
taxpayers.
I'm actually kind of hopeful we can get to that point sometime early to mid next year and do it next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that that's a local election at that particular point in time that we'd be dealing with next year, but nothing we're doing right now is what I would call, conventional at this point in time. So that would be fine, but, or, you could wait till 2022. There would be, I think it's a half a year's worth of gap in that.
Well, if you do it in the 2022.
It starts in July,
fall,
doesn't it?
The 2023 budget is already set.
Right. So basically, it would have to be next year to not to have any interruption.
So
of funding.
so during the year, in the middle of 2023, when you're doing 2024 budget, then you can utilize that money.
Well, we also have some overflow from that, but it has to be used within that time frame, right?
What do you mean has to be used within that time frame?
Between now and 2023?
No.
Okay. So you have a little bit of overlap. Not enough to probably do what we officially would need to do. You'd have to pick and choose.
It may
But
get spent, emergency bridge repair. or-
sure. There's a lot of variables.
We just added East 56
Mhm.
to that list.
Yeah. Which was originally on the list. We're just pushing it up, right?
Well, it was on the list for the new program.
Okay, gotcha.
So, yeah.
Well, look at the bright side. That'll be one that'll be off it when we do get to.
There you go. But as normal, if we did, I'm sure we'll find some others to put on.
Yeah. No, it is not. It's never been from day one my intention not to move forward with the road and bridge sales tax. And I've made that perfectly clear in my conversations with those as that conversations comes up. Now, I don't know if we need to change something in that equation or go to the 5-year or the 10-year, but I don't know on that. But we do have to have that sales tax in place to cover what we need to cover, or the two options, as I mentioned, is let all that infrastructure go completely down and close it off, or what you're gonna have to do is raise property tax. And that's a significant, increase in property tax and increase in property tax moving probably forward year to year to year to year to year after that as well. So
It just basically misspoke in the press because, correct, we were planning on putting that on the ballot this year.
Right.
Not that we weren't ever going to put it on the ballot.
Okay.
So just, I don't know when you guys want it, if you want to put it on for Monday, or if you want to wait until after the city makes a decision on Tuesday, or.
I would say maybe wait on Monday, see what the city does. Marvin will also be back on Monday. Probably needs to be part of that general discussion, although I think I know where he's probably wanting to go, but let him have the opportunity to speak and see as a full commission on this, how we want to advance.
Okay.
You just want to bring it up during your time?
Do you want, are you talking about, do you want a work session or what do you?
I think they're just talking about if all three of them agree they want to have a work session maybe Thursday. Kind of the same dialogue to decide if they want to get it on the agenda for discussion on Thursday.
That gives everybody a full board opportunity to have a
So
input on what they
I
want
want
to
to
do.
give it the correct title on a bullet point, and then my admin copy, just commission discussion about countywide absent sales tax.
Yeah.
They're good enough, generic enough.
I guess my question is that legal enough?
Sure.
Okay.
No, I mean, it honestly is on the agenda. You can add items to the agenda at any time.
Right.
The courtesy, since you're bringing it up, it makes sense to plug it in.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's fine with me. We'll discuss it on Monday.
I think one quick thing, when that's presented to the county, then be put on the ballot, the wording of it. Is there anything you can do at that point if it's not accurately portraying the taxes? Just an extension, because that wouldn't be factual. Does anybody have an opportunity to have a say on the county clerk's office when they present that?
That would really be probably up to a complaint to the Attorney General by some citizen that it was misleading or something.
Someone would have to challenge it in court.
Exactly. And then that's usually how it would come up. I'm not encouraging, I'm just telling you that would be the format if somebody wanted to challenge it. It would have to be somebody who's registered to vote. Did vote.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Well, nothing else, I'd make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'll second that motion. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.